Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of TCG Talk, back today with another video. And in today's video, we're going to be going over the color green for set 1 of the Alpha Class TCG, kind of give a set review, talk about some of the power cards, some of the cards you should be keeping an eye on, hopefully so you can kind of get yourself oriented as you build your first deck in the color green. If you like this type of content, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. If you're new to the channel, welcome. Thank you so much for stopping by. Feel free to check out my other videos. Flesh and Blood and Alpha Clash are mainly the games I play and have been covering on this channel, and hopefully you enjoy it. If you're a long-standing supporter, thank you so much as always. Feel free to check out the Patreon and the Discord down below. And we're going to get right into it. So we've been going through these set reviews. This is now the third color we've been talking about. We've talked about black a while back. We talked about white earlier this week, and now we're talking about green. Green is headed by the contender Magnate, the undisputed, or not the undisputed, but Magnate. And the whole essence of green really is like green in other card games where it's very creature based, or very, in this case, clash card based. It's very much about putting really big bodies on board and being able to just overwhelm your opponent with like these crazy static cards. Also, though, there are some cool toolbox things in green when it comes to stuff like Magnate's Plan, even clash cards like Kagan to be able to send stuff to the Oblivion. There's all these kind of neat toolbox cards that allow Magnate to be able to combat some of the faster decks in the format, like Torque, or even combat some of these like early game things that Moxie has available. It's very thematic. I think Magnate has, and green in general, is very strong, but also very thematic. And some of the higher end cards, which we'll talk about here, obviously today, honestly, I think green has access to the most powerful card in the game right now, which is Kagan, but also some really powerful late game enders that even when they're splashed into other contenders like Clarity and like Torque can really pose a problem for your opponent. So we'll get right into it. Again, the cards, every time I go over a card, it's in the top right above my head, so you have a little bit easier time reading it. And the first one we're going to talk about is Amazon Rainforest. I'll put them all in the middle at the start. So Amazon Rainforest is trigger enter. You may draw one card, which is already really good, right? Clash Ground lets you draw a card. During the draw step, each player's expansion phase, they may draw an additional card and then discard one card. So this card is really good. It's auto include, one because of Clash Ground limitations right now until we get more sets. But this card, for what Magnate wants to do, is extremely powerful. What green wants to do is extremely powerful. One of green's weaknesses, other than like Magnate Cunning Planner and Amazon Rainforest, is draw power. It doesn't have a ton of draw power. And one thing that green can suffer from in a longer matchup is lack of draw. And in this game, there's other decks that can draw really well, like Clarity can draw really well. Even Torque has some, and Red has some draw stuff. Black has some early game draw stuff with their 1-drops. And with like Weber's Binoculars. So green has to supplement that as a way. So Amazon Rainforest is really important for that. What I also like Amazon Rainforest for is it allows you to cycle to your power cards as a Magnate player, which is really important for like Kagan and Sonoro and these 5- and 6-drop Magnate cards that are really, really powerful. The last thing it's good for is to get rid of another Clash Ground from your opponent. Like if your opponent plays a 3 or a 4 cost Clash Ground, it's really, really, resource invested for them. And then you play a 1-card Clash Ground that lets you draw an additional card. Just really, really good value there. So definitely an auto include right now currently. Then we have Avenging Guy, which is trigger enter. Choose another target Clash card you control. This card gets 2/1 until end of turn, and it's a 0/1/2. This one's needs support. I think Avenging Guy is going to be in their lore and in their series, and I think until we get more stuff. I mean, this card's not bad. It's a 2-drop, but it's only a 0/1, and so you basically give something else a 2/1 buff for a turn, and then this is a 2-drop blocker with no attack power. If this was a 1/1, this actually I think would be just okay and pretty good because you have a 1/1 blocker 2-drop that buffs your stuff. But the fact that this can't really even attack anything is not good. And it doesn't get the buff from Magnate's ability because it's a rogue card and it's not an alpha card. So it doesn't get the extra defense, which makes it even worse. So until then, needs support. Again, for anyone that's not aware, I have auto include, which means they never come out of the deck no matter what. It's an auto include in green, and it's sometimes even an auto include when you're splashing green. Staple means it's in the deck most of the time, but there could be some wonky lists that don't run it. Just okay is just like it sounds, just an okay card, nothing crazy. Tech card means it's usually going to be a sideboard card, and it needs support. There are no bad cards right now. This is set 1. To say something that's bad is kind of arrogant, so and ignorant. So I put them in the need support category. So the next one is Sonoro, the Awaken Breaker. This one is auto includes. This card's so good, especially for green. Target attack. So when it attacks, this card gets 1/1 until end of turn, and you draw a card. Already really good. If the text stopped there, this card would be an auto include. If your contender is green alpha, you may ready a clash card you control with an initial resource cost of 1 or less. So being able to attack with a 1-drop and then ready it again to be able to use it as a blocker on your following turn is extremely powerful. This has really good synergy with Cunning Planner. It has really good synergy with Sonoro's 1-drop right here. And it has also synergy with any other things you splash, like a Haven 1-drop or things of that nature. So if you splash like white into it, which a lot of people do green-white. So overall, the card's busted. It attacks for 5/4, and since it has if you're playing Magnate, it's a 5/5 when it attacks. Right. This is naturally a 4/4 with Magnate, and it's a 5/5 when it attacks, and you get to draw again. Draw power is not as consistent, in my opinion, in green. So being able to use Sonoro and Amazon Rainforest and then Cunning Planner as your draw mechanics is really, really good for green. So it's an auto include. The card's so good. Definitely would run it pretty much in every deck, even if you're just splashing green. The next one is Magnate Charging Up. It's a 4-drop, 2 mana, green mana required. It says all Magnate clash cards you control get +2/+0 until end of turn. So this is just a 4-cost 2 buff. This card's just okay. If this card was like a 3-cost or a 2-cost, I think it would be pretty good to give basically everything a 2/0 buff. But the fact that there's Clash Grounds out there that do this makes it a little bit hard, right? Like, why would I play this when you can just play New York City, which we'll get to in a minute, or something like that? So it's a little bit... It's not that the card itself is bad. I think it's one more resource than it should be. I think this should be a 3-resource card, but that's an opinion. But because there's other cards that do this for cheaper and they do it for longer than 1 turn, you know, it's just an okay card. Nothing too crazy to write home about on that one. Then you have Magnate Cunning Planner. This is an auto include, not only because it's the premier 1-drop, and every premier 1-drop in every color needs to be an auto include, but it lets you draw a card. It's a 1/1 blocker that you want to block with because on death it draws a card, right? When it gets defeated, it draws a card. Really, really good. Helps you set up, you know, into turn 2 and turn 3 and keep your draw power going. Like being able to draw with this card and then draw with an Amazon Rainforest the next turn, and then 2 turns later, 3 turns later, draw again extra with Sonoro. You have a lot of different ways to continue that draw power from turn to turn. Then you have Destructive Arrival. This card is counterattack. Send target attacking clash card with power of 2 or less to the Oblivion. This card's really good. It is a tech card, but it's an auto-include tech card, in my opinion. This is a Torque killer. No, or Torques hate this card. Being able to send a Torque the Uncontrollable or any of like the 1 and 2 drop Torque cards to the Oblivion is really, really good. And I think that this card just needs to be in most decks in the sideboard if you're running green. It's just too good. It is a tech card. I wouldn't have this in the main board, but I'd have 2 or 3 of these, probably 3 of these in the sideboard, to be completely honest. Then we have Sonoro, the Fierce Fighter. Trigger enter. You may send another clash card you control to the Oblivion. Excuse me. If you do, choose 1 alpha clash card from your Oblivion with initial resource cost of 2 or less and put it into play ready. This card cannot attack this turn. Okay, so this card, I say, is a tech card. This card is really... So from my play experience so far, this card is really good for splashing. For green specifically, like mono green, it doesn't really do too much because the only thing you're going to go get is like a Cunning Planner or Sonoro or maybe, you know, like the 2-drop flight card. But if you splash this into red, when you're running red-green, you're able to go get your key Torque 2-drop where you can, you know, do your combo. This allows you to, if they take out your key Torque cards, you can basically go get it back. So I really like this card when you're splashing it into Torque. It's also good to splash into blue as well. But yeah, it's a tech card, but it's a tech card for other colors, in my opinion. So that's how I view that card. Next one's Magnate's Gamma Spear. Target Magnate contender or Magnate Clash card you control gets 1/0 until end of turn. You may then draw one card. This is a good card. I think this may be a staple, but I think it's better than just okay. Maybe it's not a hardline staple, but it's a good card. It's a 1-cost card that gives something a 1/0 buff and lets you draw a card, right? So it's pretty good. And it's a basic action. So being able to get something over the top, really, I would just use this more as a draw mechanic than anything. But something that just says pay 1 resource, draw a card, it basically replaces itself and gives something a 1/0 buff. If it was a 2/0 buff, this card would be insane. But I think maybe it's just okay just because the buff isn't crazy. It's like in between these two, which makes it hard. But I don't think it's quite good enough to be a staple. So I'll put it just okay, but it is at the very top of just okay. Next one is Gotcha, Counter Trap. Negate the effects of target trap being activated until end of turn, then send it to the Oblivion. So you basically negate a trap and send it to the Oblivion. It's a tech card against Moxie. It has Moxie's face on it. I think this card is very thematic to what the Magnate Moxie clash in the Alpha Clash TCG lore. It's very good for that. It's not something you're probably going to run in your decks a ton because it's not as relevant against a lot of other contenders. And right now, Moxie, in my opinion, is not relevant enough until someone breaks her to warrant having this in your deck. So until then, it's like a serious tech card. Or it's a need support in a way of like once traps become more relevant in the game. Kagan, best card in the game. Best card in the game. Like, it's the best card in the game. It's a 5/5 flight that says when it enters, you may send target clash card to the Oblivion. This card is so good because not only because of what it does, because it's unconditional removal and it's a 5/5 flight at 6-drop, which is just insane value. But it's because of the timing that it usually comes in. This comes in on turn 6 or 7, usually, right? Unless you're using like Haven Ramp. And the reason that's so important is because that's usually when your opponent is playing their big drops, right? If your opponent plays a Clarity Foreseen Fate, or your opponent plays a Moxie Fully Loaded, or something like that, right? Or a 7-drop Mean Streak, this card says, yeah, that's gone. Sorry. Oh, by the way, I'm also going to hit you for 5 with Flight. Like, oh, and it has 5 defense. Oh, by the way, it has 6 defense with Magnate. Like, when you combine this with some of your other key cards, it gets pretty disgusting. It's the best card in the game. It's very simplistic, but because there is not a lot of unconditional removal in the game right now, until they put more unconditional removal in, and until they put ways to prevent unconditional removal, like more gotcha style cards, but not for traps, but for removal, like more ward abilities, this card's just broken. I mean, any deck that runs green, you're going to run Kagan. Like, you just are. Whether you're splashing green or, in my opinion, even if you're splashing green, even though this costs 4 green mana, I would try to make a way to make it work if you're splashing green. But if you're running green in any way, like Dagon White that you just saw in my last video that did his white-green Clarity, he had 4 Kagans in his deck. And Clarity was his main color at white. So, card's busted. Magnate's Plan, send target accessory to the Oblivion. This is a tech card, although a very good one. It was in Dagon's sideboard. It's in very consistent sideboards. This is Destructive Arrival, probably your 2 best sideboard cards, along with Magnate's Trap, which says counterattack, send target attacking clash card with initial resource cost of 2 or less to the Oblivion. Then this controller discards 1 card. This is like the biggest Torquate card in the world. This is probably mainboarded, but I'd say it's a tech card. So all these are these 3 are tech cards, but they're also staples in the deck. Like, they're staple tech cards, right? I'd actually put this as a staple. Magnate's Plan's good. It's really good. And Torque absolutely despises this card. Really, really good. So then we have Menacing Magnate. It has Breakthrough, which means any additional damage it would deal out after it's blocked goes to the contender. So if it hits for 2, let's just say for argument's sake, you give it a buff and it's hitting for 4, and opponent blocks with a 1/1 and it doesn't kill it because it has 2 defense, it would deal 3 to the contender because it breaks through, right? It's like Trample in Magic. This card's a staple. It's really good. It's a good 2-drop. It's a 2/2 with Flight and Breakthrough with Magnate. Really, really good synergy. Really, really good card. Nothing crazy. So New York City, this is where this card gets really, really dumb with Kagan. If you have this out, if you have a New York City out in Kagan, you just win. Alpha Clash cards you control get 2-0 and Flight. Trigger enter, you may draw a card. So this is auto include. It's so good. When you play this card with a Kagan on the field, and now your Kagan is a 7/6 with Flight, and you just got more draw power, right? Your it says Alpha Clash card. So like your 5-drop Sonoro becomes a 6/4 with Flight. Even your smaller cards, right? Like a Menacing Magnate becomes a 4/2 with, it already has Flight, but 4/2, right? Like these, it's a late game win card. This card actually just helps you like straight up win. And if you're splashing into other colors, this is really, really good. This card's actually just as good splashed into other decks as it is in Magnate itself. Being able to put this into Torque and saying all his Torque cards get Flight. Maybe you do the combo with New York City up. It gets really, really good. This is also even good in Mean Streak to give his cards Flight. Anybody that runs Alpha cards is going to like this card. So cards bonkers. Definitely would run it. So yeah. Then we have Power Overflowing. It's a Clash buff. It's auto include. Nothing crazy there. Magnate ready to fight. Just okay. I do think it's a staple though. It's a 4-drop 4/5 because of Magnate's ability. So in Magnate specifically, this is a staple. In anywhere else, it's just okay. It's a 4/4 4-drop. So we'll keep it in the just okay for now. Sinister's Assistance. Send target Clash card with initial resource cost of 1 or less. Yes, 1 or less to the Oblivion. It's a tech card. There's not a lot of 1-drops. I wouldn't use this as much. It's just okay. Maybe it needs more support. We'll put it in the just okay category because there's not a lot of 1-drops you really care to send to the Oblivion other than maybe Torque's cards. But really, really, it's not that crazy. I would just say it's an okay card. Then you have Sonoro. So again, in Magnate specifically, this is a staple. It's a 2/2 1-drop, right? In Magnate, super good. Out of Magnate, it's just okay. It's a 2/1 1-drop, which is a little bit higher statted, but because it's 1 defense. The reason this card's so good in green is because it becomes a 2/2 with Magnate's ability. So I'd say it is a staple for Magnate specifically. Then you have Magnate the Tyrant. This is another staple. It's exclusive, so you may only have one in your control at a time. It has Flight. It's a 5/4 with Magnate, technically, and it says trigger enter. You may send target accessory to the Oblivion. If you do, all their Alpha Clash cards you control get 1/0 until the end of turn. So it's a 5/4, and if you can get its ability to proc, it's a 1/0 buff across the board. Super, super nice at 5-drop. And it has Flight, which is really important in this game. Makes it harder for your opponent to block you. So staple, very, very consistent card. Then we have Magnate the Undisputed. So this card's interesting. In terms of power level, it's technically an auto include, but I'm going to say it's a staple only because I think, excuse me, most green decks, because like this is only going to be run in Magnate. You're not going to run this in Splash. It's too high cost. Most Magnate decks that I'm seeing are stopping at Kagan. Kagan's like their biggest late game. They don't really care as much for Undisputed, as good as it is. It has Awe Factor. When this card enters play, all Clash cards you don't control get -2, -0 until end of turn. It has Breakthrough. It's Undisputed, which means you only can have it says this Clash card cannot be defeated during a clash on your turn. So when you attack with it, even if your opponent would kill it, it can't kill it. If you have how many 2 or more Magnate Clash cards, you can reduce the cost of this by 1. So it comes in for 7. It's very good. It's a 7/7 8-drop with Breakthrough and Undisputed in Magnate. Super good. I think it's at the top of staple. It's definitely an auto include in terms of power level. The card's nuts. But I think most people are just focusing on Kagan as their late game. And because of that, I'm just putting it as a staple. Again, if you said this is an auto include, it's too good not to be an auto include, that's fine. I wouldn't disagree with you. I'm just saying because of how good Kagan is, I think this is like most of the end game plan for most green players. So that's just how I look at it. Then we have Avenging Guy. Again, needs support. We just need more Avenging Guy stuff. I can't wait to see an Avenging Guy contender one day. It's going to be super fun. Nothing crazy there. Magnate Unwavering Might. It's a 5-drop, 4/3 in Magnate, 4/2 if you're not playing Magnate. If you control 4 more in Magnate Clash cards, you may play this from your hand without paying its resource cost. So similar to how Moxie Prime to Clash is. Then it says trigger enter. You may draw a card, so good draw power. And then you may play one Magnate Unwavering Might per turn. So it's similar to the Moxie card that we reviewed the other day. I think this is definitely a staple. So Magnate does have even more. It's so funny doing this set review now. When I'm playing green, I don't feel like I have as much draw power. But looking at the set review now, Magnate actually has pretty good draw power. Right, with Cunning Planner that draws a card. Being able to draw a card with the 5-drop Sonora, being able to draw a card with New York City, with Power Overflowing, with this 5-drop. Like, there actually is a lot of draw power in Magnate that in green that I haven't noticed, which is very surprising. Because when I play the deck, I don't feel that way. But maybe I'm just playing the deck wrong. Who knows? But overall, the green is very fun. It's very simplistic. And I don't mean that in a negative way. It's just like if you were new to the game and kind of newer to TCGs in general, as far as like mechanics and stuff, I think green is probably the best color for you to pick up. I think it's got a good power level, very simplistic. It splashes very well with a lot of colors, and overall, I think it's very strong. So let me know what your thoughts are. People are probably gonna roast me in the beginning for draw power now that I look at it, and that's fine. I mean, that's why we do these things. It's really fun. Let me know what your thoughts are. If you have anything you highly disagree with, I want to know in the comments. Tell me what's wrong. This is just my assessment to try to help you be in a decent direction, but there's stuff on here that maybe I'm not evaluating in the best way, and let me know. But if you like this type of content, please leave a like, comment, or subscribe. If not me, it's totally fine. Go to another creator, leave a like, comment, subscribe on their stuff so we can get more people seeing more card games. And yeah, I'll see y'all next time on TCG Talk. Thank y'all so much.